Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football. And it is match day. It is Manchester Derby match day. It is a big day. I'm nervous, but it's not the City that we used to face. We have beaten them in the FA Cup final. We beat them with Ruben Amorim. So our record against City is not too bad, but there could be some big blows ahead of Derby Day. Matthijs de Ligt is a huge doubt. He's not confirmed out yet because they will probably do a last-minute fitness test today, but they don't want to risk him with games like Lyon coming up. So it's basically like 95% confirmed de Ligt will probably be out. But Godwill Kukonki has been confirmed to be in the squad. Harry, Amass and Chido involved. Some big changes ahead of the United squad versus City. Some youngsters involved. Amorim speaks about recruitment. The importance of recruitment is absolutely spot on because we have to be real about what we can do this transfer window, who we can bring in. We're going to talk about Amorim's comments, updates on the Obi Martin situation. He is set to stay at Manchester United and sign a new deal. More links to Cherki and Victor Osimhen. We'll probably either touch upon that at the end of today's show or in tomorrow's show. Man United and Ruben Amorim said they also would like... Ruben Amorim was asked about Amad Diallo again in his return and said maybe for the last few matches on that. So for those asking about Amad, he might come back for the final few matches. There was rumours that Luke Shaw could be back in the squad, but I haven't heard any updates on that yet. So I'm going to assume that Luke Shaw is not in the squad. So let's dive into the news. Let's dive into the stories. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know how confident you are. Philip says here, hi Alice and everyone. I'm actually feeling confident about the match. 2-0 United. 2-1. Something tells me we're going to win 2-1. I don't know. We beat them last time. We beat them in the FA Cup. They're not that good. Maybe we'll win 2-1. The thing is, if de Ligt's not available or he does play and he's not fully fit, that worries me. And no Amad as well. I think 1-1. I think I'm going to go 1-1. Marmoush says, Don says Marmoush hat-trick. I mean, he's in my FPL, but I don't want that to happen. I really don't want that to happen. Lewis says 3-2. I think more 1-1 because no de Ligt, no Amad this time. And that's quite a big loss. And they've got Marmoush this time, who's pretty good. Nico Gonzalez has made them better. Will Mason, made of glass, Mount play much. I don't think he'll start, but I think he could come off the bench. I don't know if they're going to risk starting him yet because they're trying to be really careful with his fitness. And he obviously got injured out last time he played City. Arsenal and City both not good enough this season, true. You know, Arsenal haven't been great this season. City haven't been great this season. Yeah. And then Arsenal go and blame, it all on injuries and VAR to why Liverpool have won the league. But even like when Liverpool have had VAR setbacks, they have won the game. And yeah, like Arsenal have had no luck with injuries, but Liverpool on track for 93 points. So even if Arsenal had everybody fit and didn't have these VAR decisions against them, Liverpool could still win the league, which is crazy how Arsenal fans think they would have won the league this season if it wasn't for injuries, because they've not been good enough in terms of breaking teams down. And Manchester City have struggled physically this season. There has been a bit of a drop off at the top in the Premier League this season, and we got a draw versus Arsenal. We knocked them out in the FA Cup. We beat City in the FA Cup final. We beat them at the Etihad. So we seem to do all right in big games. Gaz is like, 3-1 City. He's like not backing us, which is very fair. AI Max said, I'm not bothered by the result. I'm excited to see Godwill Kukonki. Is he starting on the bench? On the bench as of now. Let's get into this. Let's get into the stories then. Manchester United 17-year-old talent Godwill Kukonki will make the bench for the derby against Manchester City, says Fabrizio Romano. He's come out and said that today. He's considered a top talent by the club and Ruben Amorim. So we've got confirmation coming in here that Godwill Kukonki will make the bench for Manchester United ahead of the derby, which for me is more signals and signs that de Ligt could be out. Sully obviously said yesterday, exclusive, de Ligt picked up an ankle injury after the Forest game, and barring any last-minute changes, so it's not confirmed yet, last-minute changes, they could do a last-minute fitness test. He is set to miss the Manchester derby after test this morning. The club don't want to risk him with the extent or type being unknown for now. So Godwill Kukonki being in the squad says to me, well, De Ligt's probably out the squad because we're a centre-back short. They probably might be doing a last-minute fitness test on De Ligt as we speak. But because we've got Lyon coming up and the Europa League is almost... While Ruben Amorim wants to win every Premier League game, and that's important, I think deep down United know that the Europa League game versus Lyon is even more important. That I think United would not want to take any risk on De Ligt ahead of Lyon if it looks bad and looks like we could make it worse, which makes sense. The way I see it is if De Ligt is any kind of risk, we'll keep him for Lyon. As much as we need him for this game, I think the last 3 months he's been arguably our second best player after Bruno Fernandes. He's really stepped up. But I don't think it's worth risking him at all. But there is rumours he could be set to miss the Manchester derby, with pending further confirmation this morning. Huge doubt, big risk. And I think the news coming in from Fabrizio Romano that Godwill Kukonki is set to make the bench, for me, is almost confirmation that maybe De Ligt is out. I feel like that could be enough confirmation. Oh, sorry, I was just reading out something, but I'm not going to read out that. So yeah, we'll continue into some more news and stories ahead of the team, because it's not just Godwill Kukonki that could be in the team. Chido and Amass are also rumoured to be in the squad, with Sully, who gives out a lot of good information in regards to injuries, youth and squad news, and also some of the very young players we're looking at signing. So the Harry Amass, Chido, Obi and Godwill Kukonki are all set to be in the squad. Not 100% confirmed, but all set to be in the squad unless there's any last-minute changes. Obviously, Romano has also said this about Godwill Kukonki, but Obi and Amass is believed to potentially be in the squad. I don't know if there's an injury in attack because Obi wasn't in the squad last game, or that's probably because we had the big game versus Aston Villa. But Amass is back in the squad, and you know, one thing about Ruben Amorim is he could use them. Kickoff time is 4:30 UK time. 4:30 UK time. Is Marmoush more dangerous than Haaland? Harder to shut down. Haaland is more dangerous in the box. Marmoush is more dangerous outside the box, but Marmoush is also pretty dangerous in the box. That's how I would describe it. Marmoush you need to watch more, but when the ball's in the box, you don't want to be coming up against Haaland. He's that kind of striker. So it looks like Harry Amass, Godwill Kukonki and Chido are set to be in the squad, with potentially De Ligt missing out. Now, I will in a second talk about my ideal lineup for Manchester United versus Man City. I also want to talk about recruitment and what Ruben Amorim's plans can be in regards to recruitment and what Ruben Amorim has said. But it's very difficult to sort of come up with to sort of line Man United up versus Man City, in the sense of we haven't got that many players, and there's not many players that I want to play. But let me share this and show you my squad predictions. So we're going to talk about what the lineup could be versus Man City, and I'm very confident that Højlund will be back in. I know Chido's in the squad, but I'm very confident that they will just put Højlund back in. I think there's a potential Mason Mount could start, but I don't think they're going to risk it. So I think Xerxes going to go to left 10. I think Garnacho, as much as a stinker as that was, could keep his place, because I think they know that Bruno needs to play in that pivot for progression. I think we will see Bruno. And I think, to be honest, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a Collier. I wouldn't be totally shocked if we saw a Collier. But I think, you know, Casemiro's been good, but I think it will be Bruno and Ugarte for his ball-winning ability. It will be Delo. I think it will be Yoro. I think it will be Maguire, because De Ligt, I think, will be out. I think Maguire will be just about ready. I think we'll have Maz there. I think we'll have Dorgu there. There is rumours that Maino could be on the bench, and I think Anana. I think that will be the lineup. Potentially, we see, you know, Bruno in Garnacho's place, because, to be honest, I think, you know, for me, Garnacho on the bench, coming off the bench, is more impactful. Maybe we see something like this, but a bit more defensive. I wouldn't be completely shocked with Garnacho coming off the bench. You know, we could see a Mount start, but I don't think he's quite ready yet. Maino could be back on the bench as well. That was a rumour going about. We don't have confirmation of that, but Maino is expected to be back within the next week. But Maino wouldn't start. I don't know if Mount is quite ready to start. So I think if we don't see what I just showed you a second ago, we could see this, because I think Garnacho is better off the bench, but he's a pace outlet. And I think City are gettable when you run in behind, and Amorim might want to use and sort of explore that pace outlet that Alejandro Garnacho brings for sure. But I want to talk about Manchester United. I want to talk about a few topics in a second as well. I'm just reading the chat. Alan says you definitely need some youth energy and mobility in that squad for this game. I agree. That's why I quite like the idea of Collier playing, to be honest. Would Bayendier play? I doubt it. Euro on the left side, I agree, but Amorim plays him on the right and Maz on the left. But I think Euro is better on the left and Maz is better on the right. I think Euro would have stopped Elanga scoring versus Forest had him and Mazraoui been in different positions. He's just got that little bit more pace. Someone said they don't want to see Casemiro and Maguire, but we just haven't got the options. I guess we could do Collier. Mount isn't Maino isn't ready to start, so I know that. Yeah, let's dive into it though. So I want to talk about a few things in regards to United and some comments that Ruben Amorim has made about Man United and a little bit ahead of the transfer window. And then we'll talk more about the Manchester City game, the youth. Jack Fletcher, Bentito Mantato and Jack Morehouse all could be handed debuts before the end of the season, but they aren't expected to be involved in the squad. So Ruben Amorim's obviously been asked about United and the importance of recruitment. Now, Ruben Amorim took over Sporting when they were at one of their worst ever eras, and he didn't have a very good Sporting squad. And over the summer, he had a very good transfer window with Sporting. They got the right players and profiles for his system. And then he basically won the league the next season. Now, I'm not saying he's going to do that at Manchester United. I think that's a massive ask, considering 14th to first is a ridiculous jump. But it shows that if you get the right players to Amorim's system, what he can do with it and what he's able to do. Now, Ruben Amorim was asked about recruitment, his plans and more, and he said a few interesting things. He said it's not just about big names and spending lots of money. Sometimes a young player is at the end of his contract at a big club and we can use the name Manchester United to bring him in. That's also recruitment. He's not saying old player at the end of his contract that nobody wants that's on high wages. He's saying there's younger players near the end of the contract. You know, Lenny Euro, he had a year left on his contract, so it was easier to bring him in. You know, Angel Gomez has no contract left. Jonathan David has no contract left. Poor Leo, I'm just naming three of the players there. But, you know, there's young players out there like a Jonathan David that's coming to the end of his contract, which could save us potentially money. And I think he knows where we're at in the transfer market and the sad sense of we don't know how much we can spend. If we sell, we can spend, but we need to sell to actually be able to spend, and we don't know how well we're going to be able to sell. Alex, have you got the YouTube plat yet? Nope. I don't know. I think there's like a 8-9 month holdback. If I don't get it in the next 3 months, I might contact them because it's been 4.5 months. So I hope he uses a lot of youngsters the rest of this season, give them experience. It will higher the worth if we sell them, which is a point. But one of the reasons I think Ruben Amorim was reluctant to drop the youngsters in, particularly for that Spurs game, for example, was because he feels that the squad is quite unstable and it's not the best environment to just chuck a load of youngsters in, if you know what I mean. He's got a few question marks around, like, when we were having 4 or 5 good games in a row and we were playing Leicester and we were 3-up and it was quite stable, he was quite happy to throw Amass in. He was quite happy to throw a Cheeto in. But I think he's also a little bit like, if it's not stable, if we're losing, he doesn't want to just chuck young players in and I think ruin that confidence and stuff, I think. Off topic, Alice, but you're my favourite United YouTuber. I appreciate that. Maguire up front and Nana and goal. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't be shocked if Maguire got stuck up front in the last 10 minutes if we need a goal. We seem to do that as well. Yeah, we need a lot of signings. We do. So let's talk about the window. So I think we need to be smart. And I think we need a ready-made player in attack. And we need to spend big on an attacker. But I think for other positions, we need to find players that are young, available for a good price, with great potential that suit the system, that after a season could be worth 50 million. For example, Aston Villa signed Morgan Rogers for 11 million. Morgan Rogers would walk into this system and be top 3 player at Manchester United. He was 11 million just over a year and a bit ago. Spurs signed Bergvall for 8.5 million. Bergvall, I think, walks in our team because he's got everything Ugarte offers off the ball, but with the ability on the ball. Bournemouth signed Huijsen for £13 million, and Palace signed Wharton for £20 million. All of those players are worth over 50 million. Palace would probably want 70 million for Wharton. Villa would probably want 70 million for Rodgers. Huijsen has the release clause, and I think Bergvall is a £50 million player. You know, Bergvall reminds me of Maino last season. You know, the last 3 months, Bergvall has carried that atrocious Tottenham midfield, where Maino carried an atrocious Man United midfield. And I think we need a mix of getting, someone like Acuna that is proven, or Morgan Rogers would be great, or an Osimhen that is proven. We need someone proven in attack. But I think when we're not in that position to go and get Stiller, because I don't think he'd want to come to United, or Subamende, because I don't think he'd want to come to United. We need to find maybe these kind of signings, the ones that we know are ready to step up. I don't think Chris Rigg is quite ready to step up to the Premier League yet. I think he's incredibly talented though. But Hayden Hackney, for example, I do think could be. I look at Stiller and I look at Subamende and they're ideal. We need a midfielder that can progress the ball. Our ability to progress the ball in midfield is atrocious. That's why we're liking Bruno play deep. Agate cannot do that. We need a Stiller. We need a Subamende. At United, Wharton would be great, but he's very expensive. So I do look at it and say, well, if we can't afford Wharton and we can't get the other two because they don't want to come to us, maybe this is where we do look at Hayden Hackney, who can progress the ball. We need obviously Acuna, we need an Mbeumo, we need a Gyökeres, we need those kind of players in attack. And I still think a midfield is really important. But maybe we can do something like Tottenham have saved themselves 50 million on Bergvall. Villa have saved themselves 50 million, 60 million on Rodgers. Palace have saved, going to probably get 70 million for Wharton. I think that's where we've got to be smart in regards to recruitment. It's not, we need proven in attack, but I think this is areas that we've got to be smart. And I was sort of breaking it down in terms of what Amorim said and comments and finding younger players near the end of their contract, good players. And I think, we have to have that mix. You can't just bring in loads of young players, but we don't have the budget to bring in loads of experienced players. And it's good to also build for the future. So we have to be realistic about the budget. But without European football, it's going to be difficult to attract top talents. So I look at it and I say for right wing back and centre mid, maybe we take more of a risk. A Roger Fernandez and a Hayden Hackney. Two players that, we don't 100% know how ready they are, but they're risks. And I think that's, two players that I think suit the system would work well. In attacking roles, we need experience. Now, Delap and Cunha both have PL experience. So if you sign Delap and Cunha, I'm happy with it. But I still would look for an Osimhen or a Gyökeres over a Delap just to bring that next level of experience. So in attacking roles, we need that PL provenness or experience. And then centre-back, it's about finding just the right player that's going to defend the wide channels, whether it be Hinkeby or Schlotterbeck, whether we look at the player over in Denmark, Diao, who's a bit younger, that's a right-footed centre-back that suits the system. We find the right-footed version of Aiden Heaven. It's about that mix of making sure there's at least two players that are coming in that are ready now, one player that's very good and about to hit his prime, and then two younger players. And then maybe as backups for certain positions. There's talk of United bringing in a backup striker that's 17. Like we've got Leon to be back up to Dorgu, Aiden Heaven to be back up to Licha. We've got Højlund, we maybe have Delap, but we might also bring in another young striker, although we have Chido. There's a lot of talk about United's plans in regards to bringing in young players, but we still need to get experience. We did miss out on Kenda, which was a little bit of a blow, but I don't think it was the end of the world. It's just annoying and frustrating that we got beaten to him by Chelsea. I think the Muppeteers mentioned that United were thinking about bringing Mantato into right wing back. They did say something about that, actually. I think one of the reasons we're not looking as much at right wing back, even though I think it is a very important position, is because I think Amass can play there and the club really rate Mantato. And I think the club think that if they sign a good 10, they have more chance of playing Amass and Mantato and Delo at right wing back. And I think they're prioritising, I think the way they're looking at it is striker's number 1 target, centre midfielder's number 2 target, because that also allows us to play Bruno 10. Number 10 is number 3 target, and centre back's number 4 target, and they want to spend big on those 4 positions. And then I think if they had the funds, they would then go for someone at right wing back. But I think their sort of thought process is maybe something like that. But Mantato's been very impressive. He's obviously had injury issues this season, but he signed that 4-year new deal, and he has been pretty impressive for the academy when played, and he is seen as a very good fit for the system. But let me see if I can find what was said on Mantato, because it was said that Mantato, Fletcher and Morehouse, I think, were the 3 youth players that were most likely to get a debut before the end of the season, although not confirmed. It was that he was just quite highly rated. This is it here. Bear with me. Let me just share this screen here. So obviously this was news on Bentito Mantato. If I just zoom in a little bit. Exclusive, Bentito Mantato set to sign his first professional contract for United next week, which he did. The 17-year-old is held in high regard by the club, with Ruben Amorim keen to hand him his first team debut. So, yeah, there was obviously news coming in that Ruben Amorim's keen to maybe hand him a debut. Same with Jack Morehouse and same with Jack Fletcher before the end of the season. So, again, it is interesting news, and it is definitely something to watch there in regards to will we sign a right wing back or not because of Mantato, because Ama can play there. DP says Amorim probably apparently wants to get his own keeper, but it's probably lower on Ineos' list due to budget. Anana is 13th for saves this season, and at the other end we can't score, says it all. Yeah, I think goalkeeper is like, if a big offer comes in from Saudi for Anana and Anana wants to go to Saudi, I think we'll get a new keeper. But Anana will be difficult to sell because he's got a lot of money on the book value. There's also players we need to replace more. So while Amorim would like a new keeper, it's one of those where Amorim's like, maybe he's happy to leave for 2026. I think ideally he'd want a new keeper now, but I think, you can't leave striker to 2026. You can't leave another 10 to 2026. You can't leave another centre-back for depth till 2026, and you can't leave a progressive passer in midfield to 2026. But they feel they can maybe leave right wing back to 2026 because Ama could play there, Mantato, Delo, because if we sign a 10 and we sign a midfielder, Bruno can play 10, we've got more options there. There's a feeling we probably could survive till 2026 with Anana. I think that's the thought process. Do you think we'll look at Lookman? I don't think so. I think we'll look at Cunha. I wouldn't be surprised if we looked at someone like João Pedro. I think we would look at Cunha, Morgan Rogers, João Pedro, maybe Mbeumo. Yeah, Statcher's cheap utility player that can play number 6 and centre back. I think, yeah, but I don't think he is the progressive passer profile we need. Like, I look at really good players like Edison. I think he'd be great in midfield. He's a monster Atalanta. But I think next to Agate, we really need somebody that's going to cover Agate's weaknesses in terms of ball progression. Because that is a big weakness of his. It's ball progression, actually getting the ball up the pitch. I mean, that's one thing we've got to watch out for. And Dye of Everton, yeah, I mean, there's a player there for sure. Like, I do like him. I think he's probably Everton's best player, and Dye, but he's 25. I mean, he has got 7 goals for a crap Everton side. It's one of those where, it's not a bad shout, but I think we could maybe do a little bit better. So let's dive into what else Ruben Amorim has had to say on progression and everything. But look, Adam Morton, look, if I was talking non-realistic, I'm signing Adam Morton, I'm signing Cunha, I'm signing Gyökeres, I'm signing Frimpong, and I'm signing Schlotterbeck. That's what I'm doing in the transfer window. We're talking unrealistic, but we've got to be realistic. Ruben Amorim said this. Was asked this, sorry. Is progressing in training more important than recruitment? He said, everything is connected. We have to be good everywhere, especially in the league. We have to improve our players on the pitch, which is true. He's got a job to do. But recruitment can change everything. Recruitment can change a lot because all of a sudden you could bring in 2 new signings that suit Amorim's system, and the players that don't suit Amorim's system will still play better because they've got better players around them that suit the system more and make their role easier. Also, you need to improve players as a coach anyway, even if they're not the best fit for your system. He says, when I talk about recruitment, it's not just about big names and spending lots of money. Sometimes a young player is at the end of his contract at a big club, and we can use the name Manchester United to bring him in, as we touched upon earlier. But I think this shows that Ruben Amorim knows sort of the secret and understands what's so key when it comes to the transfer window. Because he's basically saying, the recruitment isn't just about spending on big names. It's about finding, people that suit us. Is there opportunities for players at the end of the target, younger players with potential, could be backup rather than high wage players as backup, looking at the costs. He's talking about, the recruitment needs to be right, but training is also connected because as a coach, you need to do well. And he says that recruitment can change everything. It can reshape his team. It did at Sport and they won the league. He highlights that, in his other interview last week when he was asked about Langer, that United need young players to grow, but he acknowledges at Man United we can't always give these young players time. He also says, it's not just about getting young players, but it's about we do need some experienced players. We do need a foundation to support the youth that comes in. And I think he's absolutely spot on. And we were talking earlier, about, a Delap is great. A Morgan Rogers is great. And that's great opportunities out there. But we maybe couldn't have signed them 2 years ago when they were cheaper because they wouldn't have had that time at Manchester United. Now, Morgan Rogers is a player that I want to talk about because there was a rumor that United could try and use Rashford, and it wasn't like confirmed or anything, but there was a rumor about United could try and use Rashford to get Rodgers on a better deal, because Villa will not be selling Rodgers for anything cheap. I think he's more valuable to them than someone like Watkins. But this is what I said on Morgan Rodgers. I doubt he'll leave Villa for us, especially if Villa get UCL football. But if I'm Man United, I'd be looking at Morgan Rodgers. His ball carrying ability, touch, finishing, and strength to hold off players, such a rare profile. He's got the qualities of a winger, striker, and number 10 all in one. Considering we're giving them a 40 million buy option for Rashford, which is very good considering they're Premier League rivals, I'd see if we could negotiate a deal for Morgan Rodgers. Because of the fee with Rashford. He's exactly the type of player we'd have signed under Fergie, top talent with elite potential, already proving himself in the Premier League. 99% sure we've got no chance, but under Fergie, we'd be looking at a Morgan Rodgers, we'd be looking at Acuna. Under Fergie, you bring in your Michael Carricks, your Berbatovs, your Roy Keanes, your Rio Ferdinands. You bring in players that are at worst Premier League clubs, but are standout players for their Premier League club. As showing levels. That was the kind of signings we did under Fergie. It was Premier League proven. They could deal with the physicality of the league. And I look at Rodgers, and I look at Matheus Cunha, and I look at Mbeumo, and I look at João Pedro, and I think, well, they can do it in the Premier League. This is the kind of player that you would bring to Man United in the old days. And I think if we're negotiating Rashford to Villa for 40 million, which I think is a really good price, maybe we can get them to take the Rodgers fee down. I think right now they'd want 80 million for Rodgers. But could you give them Rashford and 20 million for Rodgers? Could that be something United could do? I'm not sure, but, absolute baller of a player. This was what I wanted to read out. 22 years of age, 10 goal involvements in his last 14 appearances for Villa. Versus Nottingham Forest, a game where we just played midweek and struggled. 9 duels won. Garnacho, I think, won. I don't know how many duels Garnacho won. Garnacho, Sofa score. But he would play as a 10 for us, Morgan Rodgers. But if I go to Garnacho versus Nottingham Forest, Garnacho won 4 out of 13 ground duels. He won 4 out of 13 duels. Morgan Rodgers won 9. That physicality, I think it would be such a good addition. But yeah, he won't. I don't think he will join Villa. I don't think he'd leave Villa, but I'd love Morgan Rodgers at United. But I don't think he'd leave Villa, even with Rashford going their way. I just think he could play left 10, he could play right 10. I think he's got just so much, he's got the physicality and striking to be a striker, but he's not a striker because he's got the ball carrying and passing to be a midfielder, but he's also got the speed to be a winger. I think he's got so much about him, but he's so valuable to Villa. I don't think there's any chance of this deal happening. But I think for me, I've always felt that I like Liam Delap. Gyökeres would be more ideal because of the experience. But if you get Delap and you bring in Cunha or Morgan Rodgers with Delap, someone that is, really good in that 10 role and is contributing to goals, I think it works. I think, Delap, for me, scored again. Delap. And I actually think that while there's concerns with Delap because he's 4 days younger than Højlund, he is scoring in the Premier League. He has got that physicality about him. And I think every time I watch Delap, I'm impressed. So I'm more than happy for United to bring in Delap, because I look at Delap and I think that's someone we might have brought in under Fergie. The problem is I would be more into bringing Delap if we already had a 27-year-old striker that was really good, not Højlund. So I think it's all about being smart with business. But I look at Delap and I look at Morgan Rodgers and I think 2 Premier League proven players there, physically good. I think they're the Fergie signings you'd make. The difference is, if you brought in a Morgan Rodgers and Delap under Fergie, you'd already have a really good striker there for Delap to learn from, rather than him have to take over because Højlund is not ready. That's the only thing. Cunha has a 60 million release clause. A lot of people do speak about him having attitude problems, but I think he's just not happy at Wolves. Trincão's 45 million, Cherky 20 million, Statch 15 million. There's definitely some decent options out there in the window. Thought we had a Rodgers type player in Morehouse. Definitely, I think Morehouse. But I just think, as good as I like Jack Morehouse, as good as I think he could be, and I actually think out of all the players in the academy, I think Jack Morehouse has to go out on loan next season if he's not going to play for United, because I think he's too good for academy football. He's too experienced. I just think as good as a Mantato, as good as a Jack Morehouse could be, you just don't know yet. And we have so many kids, and it's not fair to keep relying on kids. We need a couple of experienced players to come in to set a foundation so it's easier for when the kids come in. We can't just hope that the kids are going to save us. We need to make sure we get that right wing back. We need to make sure we get that 10. But you've got Morehouse and you've got Mantato that could be good options, that could push. We should be looking to win games. I will get into the last bits of news and information I want to talk about because Sean Connolly giving us an update saying that Kobbie Mainoo wants to stay at United and Man United do not want him to leave. The salary is something that will be similar to maybe Lena Yoro and Ahmad, which is going to gradually go up as he ages, potentially more of a scaling system rather than big salary straight up. That's sort of what's been said in regards to Lena Yoro. There is some links to Victor Ostenhem again today. But I do think in regards to the Victor Ostenhem leaks, I think it's being pushed a little bit by Ostenhem's agents because he's obviously desperate to get his client a move. We always link to Ostenhem, and I have a feeling it's going to go to Saudi, but he could still go to United. But I do think a little bit of it is agent push. That's, he wants to move, blah, 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 and we're constantly linked to him. There's like Milinkovic, Savic, we were always linked to him, we never went. I worry with Ostenhem. Are we being linked to him a lot because of agent push, or do we want him? Alice, any chance of a live with Adam again? Yeah, for sure. I haven't had people on the channel in ages, but I need to organise. I'm just bad at organising things, but yeah, I think the news is a bit quiet at the moment. But I think when the transfer window and the end of the season comes around, I'll definitely get people on, like Adam, when there's a bit of transfer news and stuff to talk about. But when it's a bit dead at the moment, like it, and the league, the season's sort of over. But if we have like a Europa League final or something, I'll definitely get people on to talk about things. Experience is a big thing at the moment. I agree. Would you sell Bruno to Fran Rogers? Not this season, but next season, I think. But I just think we're too bad and we need to do too much to then let Bruno go on top of that this summer when he's our best player. Yeah. But anyway, people, I just wanted to keep the live show to about 30 minutes. Look, Man United play Manchester City at 4:30. I will be back with a match reaction to that game. If any breaking news comes out, of course, I will update you guys as well. So, make sure you're subscribed in case any breaking news comes out. Thank you for watching. I'm thinking it's going to be a 1-1, but let's look. Touching wood that we win today. Yeah, thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.